Let's have a look at the various parts that you'll need in order to complete the tasks in this course and to build your web application. As you can see, there's very few. For most of this course, I'll be using this Raspberry Pi 3, which is great in terms of speed. You'll be able to compile the various sources into executables much faster than the Raspberry Pi 2 and much faster than the original Raspberry Pi. But once you go past this time-intensive compilation stage, the differences in speed are not as pronounced. So you can easily use an older Raspberry Pi. This one is an original Raspberry Pi version 1, Model B. It's about 3 or 4 years ago. Runs great. Everything just works fine. And this one is a Raspberry Pi 2, also Model B, and the same software works just nicely. So if you have a Raspberry Pi lying around, you can certainly use it for this project. It doesn't need to be the latest one. If you're curious, then it's good to know that I've also tested the application on this Raspberry Pi Zero W with the headers attached. The only limitation or the only difference here is that the Raspberry Pi W0 doesn't have a fixed wired Ethernet adapter, so you will have to rely on Wi-Fi Ethernet. But I do have information in the course on how to enable and set up Wi-Fi on your Raspberry Pi. So we can certainly go with a Raspberry Pi W0 as well. Apart from the Raspberry Pi itself, you will need an SD card. So a mini SD card or a micro SD card like this. This one is a 32 gigabytes, but I'm actually using an 8 gigabyte SD card here, since we'll be using a minimal version of the Raspbian operating system. The amount of space that it needs, the footprint that it has on the SD card is also minimal. So you can get away with an 8 gigabyte SD card. And it also doesn't need to be the latest. We're not doing anything that has intensive read and write operations on the SD card, apart from the original installation of the operating system and some downloads of source code. The rest is just the regular operations on the SD card. So you can also go for a cheaper SD card that you might have in your drawers. Other than the Raspberry Pi and the SD card, you will need a way to power your Raspberry Pi. So I'm using an adapter like this that I've spared from other devices. This is a Panasonic USB adapter that outputs 5 volt at 1.8 amps. Which is more than enough for the power requirements of this application. As you can see, the hardware that I've connected to the Raspberry Pi is minimal. It really takes no power at all, so you don't need a beefy power supply either. Of course, don't forget a mini USB cable to connect to your USB power adapter. Then you need a mini breadboard. You will need a DHT22 that we'll be using to get environmental data from. I decided to use a DHT22 sensor because it's so common. Most people seem to have one spare in the drawers anyway, and it's well supported on the Raspberry Pi with a very easy to use Python library. Of course, if you prefer, you can substitute the DHT22 with another sensor that you may have, as long as you can find an appropriate Python library. You'll be able to integrate it with the rest of the scripts that I'll be showing you in this course. But you can also do that at a later stage. So you can start with a DHT22 and follow along with the instructions in the course, and then as an extension attach additional sensors. We also have a normal breadboard friendly push button with its pull down resistor, a 10 kilo ohm pull down resistor, and an LED with its current limiting resistor. Around 300 ohms will be great. And don't forget, you also need a bunch of jumper wires. And that's about it. I have a full list of these components in the URL that you can see at the bottom of the screen right now.